Part 7. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui Xiang. Chapter 63. End of simulation. Achievements of this round. What is love? Love score, 59 points. Evaluation, lose weight little by little, become haggard little by little, and then die without leaving a trace in the bleakness of autumn, together with the entire season. Settlement, you gain a moderate amount of learning experience, you absorb the essence of Shianakian, and gain absolute musical talent and gene-stabilizing reagent technology. After a long time, in the simulation space, Asaba Kazuma's hand reaching out to Shianayuin suddenly stopped. The red roses blooming on the tombstone of Qianyu's family almost drove him crazy. After a long time, he came back to his senses and finally suppressed his heavy heart. At least it's just a simulation, and there's a chance of salvation. Asaba Kazuma's hand subconsciously wanted to click on the option to continue the simulation, but soon he realized something and forcefully grabbed the outstretched hand. No, we can't simulate it now. The results of the last round of simulation haven't been digested yet. Let's review the omissions in this simulation first. He has received professional training and will not easily let his emotions affect his judgment. Unless you can't help it. The gunshot crossed the dividing line between virtuality and reality and hit him in the heart. It hurts terribly. His mind told him that he shouldn't start simulating, but his hands seemed to be disobedient. He doesn't accept this ending. That's it, exit the simulation space. He needed to calm down. Without using the function of digesting potions in reality, digesting the results of the previous round of simulation, and hastily starting a new simulation, there is no way to advance the plot more effectively. If nothing else. Do you really think that the gene-stabilizing reagent technology that he spent more than 10 years and learned from everyone's strengths can be digested by him now? Fortunately, the effect of digestive potion is even more unreasonable. Give him some time, and he may be able to get off to a good enough start. He looked out the window and saw the light of dawn already appearing on the horizon. This simulation is different from any other. There were so many questions that came up that he couldn't understand. For example, the simulation continues after one's own death, the adjuster accident that sweeps the world in the future, or another fatal threat after 3 swords and 6 holes. He needs to collect some information first. Of course, the most important thing is to gain the benefits of activating the simulation first. The talent absolute pitch is activated. Technology gene stabilization reagent activation. Purchase digestion potion X2 and take it. Let's take a shower first. It was already dawn and he had to go to school. After taking a shower, with red eyes, he finally suppressed the throbbing at the moment of Shianakane's death. Let's walk to school today while it's getting early. Qianyu Kazuma picked up her satchel and went out directly. Walking on the street in the morning light, Qianyu Fengjian couldn't help but think about this simulation. There are many details that cannot be shown in the simulation. After all, a considerable part of the content is presented in text form. Asaba Kazuma had a hunch that he might have made a certain misjudgment because the simulation did not fully demonstrate Shianayuin's situation. Where exactly he misjudged it, he couldn't say. It would be nice if we could meet her in real life. Speaking of which, her home is not far from where I live, otherwise I would never have met her in the car before. While walking, he suddenly paused while passing by a Japanese-style garden. When he saw Shianakane walking out wearing a clean, ironed school uniform, he almost bumped into her head-on. Sorry, he subconsciously took 2 steps back. There is a gap between simulation and reality after all. Seeing her up close, Asaba Kazuma could not help but admire her beauty again. It was clearly a B in high school uniform, but when a gust of wind blew past the hem of her knee-length skirt, the skirt fluttered, and the smell of a classical beauty from calligraphy and painting hit her face. Especially now that her expression is dull, the light of the morning sun creates a beautiful blush on her face. The pretty nose bridge, thin lips, and the graceful curvature of the jaw, paired with the single ponytail, really make people feel heartwarming. As if aware of Kinyo Kazuma's gaze, her clear and translucent eyes swept towards him under her long eyelashes. "Are you, a second-year junior Chien-yu?" Asaba Kazuma nodded and said calmly, "What a coincidence, senior sister Shiina, we meet again." There was something complicated in his heart. "I met her just after I came out of the simulation." Shiina-kian looked at him with clean eyes and said calmly, "Well, you probably don't live nearby. Why did you come to the waiting station here?" "A classmate asked me to bring him breakfast, so he dropped by nearby." He subconsciously found a reason. It couldn't be said that he was mentally depressed and he should go out for a walk to relax. Shiina-kian nodded lightly. Junior Kinyu is really good to his friends. Then no more words were spoken. Kinyu Kazuma didn't feel anything at first, but after a moment, he suddenly came back to his senses. Something seems a little wrong. He suddenly realized what he had overlooked. Asahi Kazuma was a human in his previous life, and he was used to exposing the inner world of interviewees through the third person. This is a common operation for human beings. After working for so many years, analyzing other people's inner world has become his instinct. Later, he received Rina-style shaping. Under the dual influence of experience and talent, his ability to profile a person's psychology was greatly improved. Before promotion, Rina could easily be read by him. After the upgrade, Daisuke Hiramaki and the original animators who started the construction were all confused by the CPU. They are still grateful to Asaba Kazuma and feel that it is really great that they can hire him. But how many people knew that it was actually him who wanted to eat the cake that started the construction? He was the one who should have begged for the construction to start, but now he predicted Daisuke Hiramaki's thoughts in advance, and after a slight adjustment, he became the guest. Of course, it's not a loss to start the project, because he does have enough ability to make the project more brilliant. Logically speaking, he should be able to defeat Shiina-kian. After all, now, he even has absolute pitch, he just needs to use it skillfully. But now, having begun to initially activate absolute pitch sense, he could not decipher her emotions just now, let alone psychological profiling, no matter from experience, demeanor, movements, or timbre. Is Shiina-woman very scheming? Obviously not. She is still very young and has not experienced the workplace. No matter how scheming she is, she will not go far. In other words, this guy is used to controlling his emotions. He is an extremely emotionally reserved character. It has nothing to do with scheming. Rina is afraid to go out because of social fear, but deep down in her heart, she actually yearns for the sunshine of the outside world and is willing to actively communicate with others. But Shiina-woman was different. Although she is not as complete as she was in the simulation, she can almost instantly read other people's emotions through their timbres. But she has learned how to hide her emotions. This was the reason why he misjudged in the simulation. He mistakenly thought that she had given up, but in fact that was not the case at all. He is naturally proficient in managing emotions. However, Asaba Kazuma knows better that the better he is at managing his emotions, the more extreme he will be when his emotions break out. The scary thing is, you can't even feel that something is wrong with her before she explodes. From calmness to collapse in just a moment. He paused. Heian is not the kind of person who is good at showing his emotions. After mastering emotion management, his true thoughts become more restrained. But why did she reveal her flaws so easily in the simulation? Qian Yufengjian's scalp suddenly felt numb. She is a natural master of emotional management. If one day she is willing to show her true self, it can only mean she took the initiative to choose to show it. If this is the case, then in the first two simulations, was it a coincidence that Shiina-kian met him, or was it inevitable due to her active choice? If the latter one, then he may need to change his dating simulation strategy. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 64. Previously, Asaba Kazuma's plan was to inherit the relevant experience from the second simulation, open the passage to the depths of Mrs. Asaba's heart as quickly as possible, and then hit the ball straight to the face, speed up the rhythm, and before he sent it, the husband and wife mixed doubles, promote related research on gene-stabilizing reagents as quickly as possible. But now it seems that Shianakian, it's really hard to say who is the prey and who is the hunter. He had never thought of her as a hunter before. After all, the choice of the heroine of the love simulation is up to him. In his opinion, he is the one who takes the initiative. In the simulation, he used such a small way to trap Shiana Yuan at the beginning. No matter how you look at it, he should be taking the lead. But now it seems that Shiana Uman himself is an emotional management master who has basically locked away his emotions. He has 3 major killer weapons, previous life experience plus absolute sound sense plus styling, but there is no way to effectively interpret it. Her inner world. Because the current Shiana Uman is as if protected by airtight glass, extremely reserved and difficult to see clearly. And whether it was the first simulation or the second simulation, he always started acting in the way of the ultimate fun man. As she said in the simulation. "Ah, that's it, Asaba-san, you are really interesting. I changed my mind, do you want to try the feeling of a wind speed of 64 kilometers? Because the self in the simulation showed the character of the ultimate Rakugo person, this led to Shiana Uman also choosing to deal with it in the same Rakugo persona way. Asaba Kazuma should have realized that as long as he spoke a few more words to Shianakian offline, he would know that she did not have such a personality at all. Then in the simulator, after the first simulation, he should have guessed the true nature of Shiana Yuan. After all, Asahi Kazuma's attitude towards prey and hunter are different. But without this little profile, he wasted too much time in the simulation to gain the initiative. "Senior Asaba, is there something on my face?" Shiana Kane said in a low voice. Kinya Kazuma came back to her senses and looked at her Fujing Muha's eyes. The gunshot seemed to still linger in his ears, and his voice softened subconsciously. "It's nothing, I just think Shiana-senpai is indeed worthy of being the famous beauty of Heikuin High School." Shiana Kian's eyes moved slightly, and she said calmly, "Thank you, Junior, for the compliment." Kinya Kazuma sighed inwardly. "Knew it. Completely different. MRS Kinyu, I almost let you fool me." It is certain that long before the timeline when the simulation started, Shiana Yuan had already become curious about herself for unknown reasons, otherwise it would not be really interesting. However, she has obviously observed herself, but now she is so silent, which shows that she has indeed suppressed her emotional expression. As for the reason, it can only be absolute pitch. The key to getting her to show her emotions isn't some bullshit tiger's den doujinshi, but you need to show development beyond her expectations and let her, a caged bird, see unexpected possibilities. If you understand this premise, it's okay even if you don't use doujinshi issues as a threat. Of course, how to make her fall in love with him is another matter. The previous operation he took was to let Shianakian lower his bottom line and moral sense little by little. But this method of operation takes a lot of time, and it is a bit difficult to play mixed doubles faster. He looked up at the passing bus, patted Shianakian on the shoulder and said, "Let's go, senior, it's time to get on the bus." Shianakian's eyes rolled slightly, seeming a little confused. After getting on the bus, seeing that there were still empty seats on the bus today, he went over and found a place to sit down. Not long after, Shianakian also sat next to him. The two did not speak. Asahi Kazuma had not been able to suppress his emotions. Now that the real master appeared in front of him, his emotions were even more complicated. He was certain that even if Shianakane was not interested in him as a lover at this point in time, he was at least interested in him. The movements are easy to hide, the timbre is easy to hide, but the eyes are hard to hide. She doesn't have that many palaces. Only after spending a long time together in the simulation could he deduce this answer. It was precisely because of this that he felt extremely painful. Just after coming out of the simulation, I met him again in reality. It really felt like a bullet penetrated the virtual and reality and killed him directly. But he couldn't move. She resembles her, but is not her. She is her, but not like her. It was precisely because of this that he finally realized the deepest operating logic of the love simulation. To summarize the simulation from Rina to Hien, there are the following two situations. The high-scoring ending of Happy End is equivalent to playing a perfect CG, and naturally the simulation ends. The bad end ending, no matter how well arranged it is, will quickly interrupt the simulation. At most, like in Rina's if line, after showing the ending of the lily on the windowsill, it is equivalent to stating the tragic ending, and then the simulation will be dim end. The key point lies in the judgment of bad end. He initially thought that his or the heroine's death was the basis for bad end, but now it seems that this is not the case. He thought about the circumstances in which he died 3 times in these 6 simulations. 1. The adjusted gangster made 3 cuts and 6 holes and died before seeing Rina Ishihara. The simulation ended. 2. Tatsuo Fujiki used lethal drugs. He and Shiina died on the spot, and the simulation ended. 3. Because the lack of natural stabilizers in the plasma accelerates the collapse and death of its own genes, the simulation continues. At this point, as smart as he is, how can he still not understand the basis for the end of this love simulation? I may have made something wrong as Sabakazuma turned his head and looked out the window, preventing Shiina from seeing his painful face. The key to interrupting the simulation is not his own death, nor the death of the heroine. Those are just appearances. There is actually only one inherent logic in this love simulator. Continuation of love. As long as the heroine's love for him continues, the simulation will continue even if he dies. Why did the simulation end after being stabbed 3 times and 6 holes in the first simulation? Because the love between him and Ishihara Rina died before it sprouted. At that time, Ishihara Rina didn't know him at all, so it was naturally impossible to continue her love for him. Why did the simulation end after 2 people died in Shiina first simulation? Because after Shiina death, the subject who continued her love for him has disappeared, and the simulation naturally has no way to continue. But in this simulation, Shiina never let go, let alone forgotten. She was like a thief with her heart in mind, carefully hiding her true feelings, and returned to the life of a caged bird. But what is different from before is that the canary in the cage has already soared outside, and it is waiting for the person to pull it out again. If he forgot or left, the canary's ending would be broken wings in the cage. He never wanted to see the red roses blooming on the tombstone again. In the next simulation, he must survive, even if it is in a vegetative state, leaving her with a little hope. He must survive. Otherwise, the bullet will be shot again. There isn't much time left for me and her. If my current guess is correct, then Shiina-senpai, I might be a little rough next time we meet in the simulation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 65. The school bus stopped. The two got off the bus and walked towards Bian High School. Asahi Kazuma, who had basically figured out his next operation idea, felt obviously much better, and his expression became much more at ease. Shiina, who was following him, looked at Asahi Kazuma with some confusion. Why is he getting weirder today? But she didn't ask any more questions and hid quietly behind her. It wasn't until Asahikazuma walked into the teaching building that she tilted her head, turned and walked towards her classroom. It's become more interesting. Asahikazuma naturally didn't know what she was thinking. He came here today because he had more important things to arrange. After class in the morning, he was called to the office. Teacher Haruna Hayakawa is sitting in the office, seemingly waiting for a while. Seeing Asahikazuma coming in, she waved her hand and said, "How are you thinking? Taking advantage of the recent big exam, your performance was unexpectedly good. If you apply to enter the special class now, the probability of success is not small. I will personally tell the principal. Of course, if you don't want to change classes now, just pretend I didn't say anything." Asahikazuma shook his head and said seriously, "I agree to this matter, Mr. Hayakawa, please leave the rest of the process to me." In Bian High School, under normal circumstances, classes will be divided once after the first year of high school, and then in the following second and third years of high school, only the desk positions will change. If there were no accidents, it would be impossible to enter the special class. Well, now Asahikazuma is that accident. It's not like he had any thoughts about it. They are no longer children, so it is impossible for them to have the idea of saying goodbye to their old classmates after entering the special class. In the final analysis, he did not have deep memories of the original owner. If he could have a better future now, what reason would he have to say no? When school was about to end in the afternoon, Kana Hayakawa quietly sent him a message, telling him that the matter of entering the special class had been settled. When school was over in the afternoon, Teacher Hayakawa led him to say goodbye to his original classmates. Amidst the screams of some female students below, Asahikazuma's days in this class came to an end. Asahikazuma, who traveled lightly, didn't stay long. After saying goodbye, he got in the car and ran towards the location of the animation studio. He has no ideas for new simulations yet. The digestion potion should only be effective in reality. According to his estimation, in order to fully absorb Shiina Yuan's talents and technical information, with the help of the digestion potion, it would only take 3 days in reality. But if you enter the simulator directly before digestion is complete, the accelerated absorption effect of the digestive potion will be lost. It may take several months or even a year in the simulator to fully absorb and consolidate these talents and information. If this is the case, it will delay the progress in his simulator. Mention your workload. In these 3 days, try to buy yourself as much time as possible to manage risks. During this time, he planned to mention his workload a little bit in order to compress more time for himself. Not to mention, after having a work goal, his work efficiency has been further improved. By the time he is about to get off work today, he has almost finished handling the plans for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. As if affected by his berserk state, his original animator seemed to have awakened some strange XP, and his efficiency was almost 30 to 40% higher than usual. The work was completed relatively early today, so Asahikazuma simply asked the people in the studio to finish their work early. After completing today's training, Daisuke Hiramaki said with unfinished content, "It's a pity. It would be better if the training time was longer." Supervisor Asaba is indeed professional in this aspect. At this point, he remembered something and asked, "Director Kinyu, today we are going to have a dinner at an izakaya. If you have nothing important, just accompany us. Don't worry, you won't be allowed to drink." Kinyu Kazuma shook his head and said, "Forget it about going out to eat or something, my burden is still a bit heavy these days. Okay, let's wait until October. After our animation is officially released, everyone can go out and have a small gathering together. If possible, invite Miss Rina too. Although we have not met in real life, she is also a project that we approve of." Members. Seeing what Daisuke Hiramaki said, Asahikazuma had no reason to refuse. "I will stress it with her alone." Soon, 3 days passed. During this time, Asaba Kazuma entered the special class of Hakuin High School, and he also had the classic back row by the window, Wang's hometown position. What surprised him was that there were 3 empty seats in the back row of the special class. However, after he came to the special class, these 3 empty seats became 2. As soon as he entered the class, he encountered special hospitality from his new classmates. After all, no one will actively refuse to communicate with good-looking people, no matter men or women, they are the same. Not to mention that Asaba Kazuma's emotional intelligence is really a dimension reduction attack level for students of this age. Therefore, in just the past 3 days, Asaba Kazuma has gone from a newcomer who just entered the special class to a social celebrity who can talk to many classmates. Of course, under his active control, he was quickly liberated from this state. Now he doesn't have so much time to waste on social interactions that are not that useful. So after he bluntly stated that he has serialized comics on Jump and served as the supervisor of the animation studio, so that his spare time has been very busy recently, the students also appreciated it and temporarily gave up inviting Asaba classmates to play with him. Idea. After Asaba Kazuma apologized several times and explained the matter clearly, before he knew it, the digestive potion had successfully helped him absorb the related talents and technologies of absolute pitch and gene stabilizing reagent. That afternoon, he handed over the related projects that had been handled in advance to Daisuke Hiramaki, asked him to help supervise them, and then turned around and left. After returning home, he eagerly started Kunulu, Love is War 2077. He was already impatient for Shienayuin's third simulation. There are too many doubts that need to be understood in the love simulation. This time there was nothing in the achievement store that was worth redeeming. So he simply chose to simulate reopening. Simulation starts. During the simulation process, please adjust your body angle and maintain a comfortable sleeping position. After waking up again, you were bored and met the plain-faced Shienayuin one morning. Looking at her familiar yet unfamiliar face, you were filled with emotions. Now, you have become a member of the special class and have a brighter future than before. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 66. Chapter 66. Now, you have become a member of the special class and have a brighter future than before. After joining the special class, Haruna Hayakawa originally planned to let Shienayuin be your temporary tutor, but after much thought, he chose to give up. Although they both belong to Hakuin High School, the teacher resources of the special class are far better than those of other classes. With the teacher resources of the special class, she thinks that you no longer need Shienayuin's help. Asaba Kazuma? Mr. Hayakawa, Lee Zigan is a demon. Forget it, I can find a more suitable way even if I can't do it for free. It's just about turning passive into active. Without Hayakawa Haruna coming to connect you, you no longer have a normal reason to contact Shienayuin. But you have made up your mind to change everything, and the next step you have to do is. I stopped Shienayuin on the way to school and said meaningfully, we meet again /. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 67. What is it like to have a hidden secret discovered by a junior? Shienayuin thought for a moment. It's not like she was panicked when it was revealed that she read R18 comics. Okay, actually a little bit. But it's more of a curiosity that can't be concealed. She initially tried to control her emotions in order to hide the nervousness she felt when buying R18 comics and carrying them with her. If her family and classmates found out that she was in a bad mood, it would be difficult for her to explain. Later, she found a whole set of coping strategies. She is the kind of person who, even if someone pulls a comic out of her backpack, can open her eyes wide and ask her classmates with curiosity, who put this comic in. She can even read it in front of everyone. The person who opens a comic book and ends up with blush staining his cheeks and spits out filth. Being ashamed is really embarrassing. If you want to clean yourself up, you can really do it. When she looks at you with confused eyes, who would believe that the talented girl from the Shiana family would look at such filthy things? But now, she was seen through without mercy. Shiana Kian bit her lower lip and hid the tangled look in her eyes. She really wanted to know the detailed information about genetic modification, but she instinctively didn't want to get close. Mystery means unknown, and unknown often hides danger. Especially the operation that Asahi Kazuma did without hesitation just now gave her a sense of danger. It was like poison with an alluring aroma. If she got close, it might bring danger to her. But, I still want to know. Shiana Kian hid her thinking eyes and said curiously. Junior, can you tell me about the genetic adjustment you mentioned? It's inconvenient. Besides, what's there to say about this? Your family should have learned the general situation from Genji Medical. Shiana Yuan's eyes flickered slightly. Sure enough, Junior Kinyu has a clear enough understanding of her disease. After her curiosity came up, she couldn't hold it back and asked in a low voice. Is this why you've changed so much during this time? Kinyu Kazuma was stunned for a moment, feeling that he was vaguely aware of some kind of truth. He pretended not to understand and said calmly. What changes? Shiana Kian thought for a moment and said seriously. Can I trade the secret for the secret you're hiding? Chienyu Kazuma put on a relaxed and cheerful smile and said, it depends on whether your secret is worth the price. Senior Asaba's change must have occurred a month ago, Shiana Kian suddenly said, I heard this with my ears. Chienyu Fengjian paused for a moment, and suddenly realized something in his heart. He finally understood the origin of Shiana Kian's curiosity about him. He also has absolute pitch and can understand this feeling very well. The gift of absolute pitch amplified his perception of timbre. The amount of information that can be conveyed in the human voice is very huge, ranging from emotions to general personality, which can be effectively conveyed in conversations between people. This is especially true for him who has mastered absolute pitch. Because I am so good at identifying other people's timbres, sometimes remembering a person is not as efficient as remembering their voice. In the circle of Shiana Uman's daily life, even if everyone's timbre changes, it is a gradual process, and the weak changes will be quickly heard by Shiana Uman, implanted in the mind, and overwrite the previous ones. Tone memory. This is a constant birdcage framed by sound. But one day, there was a noise in the ever-changing birdcage. That day was the first day he had just awakened. After thinking about this matter, Kinyu Kazuma chuckled softly, it turns out that you heard the abnormality of my voice at that time. Well, a person's timbre itself is one of the labels of this person, but after just a few days, your timbre has changed drastically, as if, it's like you have become a different person, so I am very curious. Kinyu Kazuma spread his hands and said, want to know? Shiana Kian's eyes flickered, and after a moment of hesitation, he nodded, is it okay? Can't. Ah. Not enough. This secret already involves my core secret. Your secret is not that valuable. There are too many secrets hidden in Asaba Kazuma. The past before fever is the core secret that no one can touch. But there are some core secrets below, which can be discussed. Able to continuously acquire new abilities to adjust genes. Forget it, it's inconvenient to say, it's hard to explain, and it might involve the system. Then there is only one secret that can be revealed, he can deduce the future to a certain extent. There are ridiculous things like adjusting genes. My adjusting genes are used to deduce the future from time to time, so that's no problem, right? In other words, he originally planned to tell her about deducing the future. First, it can deepen the relationship between the two. Secondly, he hinted to her that the reason he trusted her was because they were partners in the simulated future. Thirdly, it can also explain the source of the genetic adjustment drug information. However, This news cannot be told to her directly. If it is obtained too easily, it will not be cherished. If you want to bring the two people closer, you need some skills, such as: your secret is not valuable enough unless. Asaba Kazuma raised her eyebrows and said provocatively, "Well, Senior Shiana, please show me your sincerity first. A good girl like Senior should have never skipped class, right? I just don't want to go to class today, so you go out with me?" Ah. Shiana Kane prides herself on being a smart person, but today she was confused by Asaba Kazuma's actions with a hammer and a stick, and she still doesn't understand what he wants to do. "Just tell me whether you agree or not," Jian Yufengjian said indifferently. "I didn't go to school today. My parents will definitely know about this, and it will be troublesome." Shiana Kane objectively stated a fact. She put her hands behind her back, and a vague low pressure came from her. Yes, now she doesn't have the courage to take the initiative to say no to her parents. Not to mention that Mr. Shiana is the kind of old parent who has a strong desire to control, which he fully realized in the last simulation. But the corners of Asahi Kazuma's lips curled up. Shiana Uman doesn't have to worry about what her parents think. It seems like she is rejecting it, but from another perspective. "Then you hurry up and follow me. Let me take care of the uncle and aunt's affairs." As soon as she finished speaking, the new low pressure surrounding Shiana Kane slowly dissipated. When she raised her head, her clean eyes shone with a sense of surprise, curiosity, and even surprise. The two have been pulling each other for a long time, until now, she finally took the bait. Kinya Kazuma said with a smile, "Seriously, you can leave this matter to me, but I have a request." "Any request?" "You have to listen to me when you go out today," Kinya Kazuma said seriously. What responded to him was Shiana Yuan's subconscious retreat, and the perverted look on her face. It seemed that the next second he dared to make a perverted request, she would immediately shout for help, turn around and run away. "Of course, if my order touches your bottom line, then you have the right to choose to refuse." "Shiana Yuan heard the sincerity of your voice, but considering that you and she have the same adjustment gene, it is impossible to confirm whether you have adjusted your voice." This is a situation she has never encountered before. Before meeting you, she understood that the people around her were constant, or in other words, their changes were foreseeable, but you were different. You are like a whirlpool, dragging all her knowledge into the deep water. The sense of emptiness and mystery that cannot be understood makes her nervous and gives her unprecedented stimulation. You completely aroused her curiosity. She knew you were so dangerous, but she couldn't help but get closer. Just like a nun who does seductive things in the name of abstinence. By the way, it will be available on the shelves at noon on Monday. Interested readers can support it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 69. This book starts on June 21, 2023 and will be on the shelves at 12 o'clock noon tomorrow. Here, I would like to sincerely thank the readers who have always supported me. Without your support of reading, rewards, comments, collections, monthly votes and recommendation votes, this book would never have reached this stage. Luoluo has always been on the street, and she can't sell it despite the poor sales. Now that she is facing the shelves, she is very calm. Mysterious voice, maybe it's because the results were too disappointing. Fortunately, Luoluo chose to be a full-time street writer, so she was mentally prepared. Readers who come from old books should know that Luoluo rarely rests. The old book is almost finished, and the new one is almost ready to be opened. As for whether you can survive after it is opened, it depends on God's will. In the author's profession, there is very little so-called rest during the serialization period. This is my 11th year of writing online articles. In the first 7 years, I mainly focused on self-interest. To put it bluntly, it has only been 3 years since I started writing articles in earnest. It has only been nearly 2 years since I started writing articles with all my strength. The old book The Reincarnation of a Succubus has the last chapter left, and it is expected to be completed by writing the last 10,000 words next week. Now that the new book is about to be released, when I look back, I realize that a long time has passed. To be honest, writing this love simulation was very difficult. This is the first time Luoluo has conceived a new book based on a pure love story. Faced with this kind of subject matter, which is almost starting from scratch, it is really challenging to write. After writing and sending it out, there are a lot of things that need to be pulled back and revised. To put it bluntly, this book has set a record for the most time spent on a single chapter since Luoluo wrote, an average of more than 2.5 hours, and individual chapters may even take more than 5 hours. For example, the last few chapters of Rina Ishihara's last simulation. Another example is Shiina Umi's Dance and That Bullet, which was almost strangled to death by the reader a few days ago. It seems to be working well, and there are more feedbacks from readers. All I can say is that if I invest enough time, even a novice like me can barely mention the quality. The idea of writing a love simulation came from watching Yinghuo Lao Zia Hem, Yinghuoju's Love After Simulation, Oslo. The front part is really good. So much so that I even shamelessly hugged Yinghuo and asked him if there was anything I needed to pay attention to in the dating simulation, because I really wanted to write it. I even secretly went to him later to trick him into writing a chapter. After I officially started writing, I encountered many difficulties. It's really difficult for a clumsy person like me to write love stories delicately. Fortunately, friends I know have been helping me, such as my author friend I Love Xiao I, who is harassed by me every day. The author of The Game of Life, I usually call him Sister Bai. The plot was controlled to the point of pulling, thanks to his great help. There is also Sister Kushui, whose nickname is the pigeon spirit of the Ere family, the author of Tokyo, beginning with the Maiko Big Sister, who is also the target of my frequent harassment. Another example is 6 Days and 4 Dusts, the Phantom Thief of the Heart, but the author of Conan, this is the real sister. There are many author friends who helped me read the text and gave me suggestions before the book was published. Of course, there is also our editor Peng Lai. Woohoo, thank you Napeng for your strong support. Whenever I can make more money, I will go to Shanghai to play with him. Now that this book has finally come to the shelves, I don't know how many first-time subscriptions will be received. Luoluo has rarely asked for subscriptions, but this time, I still hope that qualified readers can support this book and support it by first-time subscriptions. If you enjoy watching it, it would be better to subscribe automatically. Whether Luoluo can be supported depends entirely on the support of all readers. Many thanks in advance. I will try to finish writing the 10,000 word update before it goes on the shelves tomorrow, and publish it all in one go tomorrow. Code word. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 70. The two of them looked at each other's hung-up phone, speechless and choked for a moment. Kinya Kazuma scratched his head and said, I said I didn't mean it behind the scenes, do you believe it? Shianakian nodded and said, does that mean it was intentional? Asahi Kazuma. Shianauman. He reluctantly suppressed his somewhat embarrassed smile and said calmly. Don't worry, Teacher Hayakawa is not a talkative person. I'm sure she won't tell us what happened today so easily. Jingle bell bell. Shianakane looked at his mobile phone in silence. On the mobile phone, the 4 characters Hayakawa Haruna looked so dazzling. Shianauman's expression showed a rare hint of anxiety. Asaba Kazuma spread her hands and said. Don't worry, watch me perform. He answered the call, and before he could speak, he heard Hayakawa Haruna's scream. Asaba Kazuma, tell me quickly, where did you abduct Xiaohian? Asaba Kazuma covered the microphone. After Mr. Hayakawa calmed down a bit, he opened the microphone and said seriously. Teacher, there will always be some people and some things that require us to go all out when it's time to make the right choice. UTND, don't fool me with such words. What do you want to do? If there is something you need to run out of when you should be in class. It's a very important matter, Asaba Kazuma said seriously. Teacher, I still remember you told me at that time that there must be something more important than class, such as the Jianjia outside the building, or the moon tonight. Hayakawa Haruna shook her head and laughed and cursed. Are you trying to point me out? Do you think this matter is important to Hien? Asaba Kazuma turned her head and looked at Shiina Kane, whose face was unmoved but whose little hands were clenched tightly, and raised an eyebrow at her. Maybe this thing can change her life. Hayakawa Haruna snorted and said, you shouldn't be allowed to say this. Give her the phone and let her tell me. If she has no objection, I will agree to keep it secret for you, just this time. It won't happen next time. Asaba Kazuma turned to look at Shiina, and pulled Shiina, who was subconsciously leaning towards him. She struggled for a moment, but she heard him lower his head and approach her ear, exhale and say. If a caged bird wants to be freed from its restraints, it must have the intention to break free from the cage. Shiina-senpai, if you really want to see a different world, you have to take action. Sister Haruna has been shaken. All you need to do is tell her, this matter is very important to me. So, it's up to you. Shiina Kian was silent for a long time, and for a moment she didn't know how to reply. What could she say? You can't tell Mr. Hayakawa. Hey, I was kidnapped by one of your students on the way to school today. I originally planned to call for help, but he muttered in my ear. The hot breath mixed with the complicated and unspeakable sound made my heart and legs weak. And now I plan not to resist and just let him take me to do some dangerous things. I hope Mr. Hayakawa will not be disrespectful and do some snitching work. If she dared to say this, Shiina could guarantee that Mr. Hayakawa would call the police 100%. But that's it, there's no turning back for her. She bit her lower lip and whispered to the other end of the phone. Mr. Hayakawa, I'm sorry, I'm really busy today. Okay, young people today are different from our times. Asaba Kazuma complained, Sister Haruna, you really sound like an old man when you say this. You want to say I'm old? Of course, that's not the case, Kinya Kazuma said calmly. Teacher, some people have almost found their moon, but some people are already teachers and have not been in love yet. All we can say is to support each other. Let's encourage each other. Get lost. Hayakawa Haruna hung up the phone angrily. Seeing that the matter finally came to an end, she breathed a sigh of relief and looked at you with a little complaining eyes. However, a strange feeling still came to my heart. It had nothing to do with love, it was just that in this morning with the breeze, she actually took a small step forward under your instigation. She began to look forward to analyzing what would happen next. The scene unfolds. Then, I will arrange where to go today, okay, Chienu Kazuma said seriously. Shiina Kane didn't reply, so he took it as her consent. He grabbed her wrist, and she tried to break free, but failed. When the bus arrived, she could only give up on herself as he pulled her onto the bus. If you are going to do something weird, don't blame me for shouting for help, she said softly. Yes, Kinya Kazuma subconsciously wanted to reach out and rub her hair, but she avoided it cautiously. Looking at her wary eyes, he smiled and said nothing. He didn't make any more moves along the way, just quietly watching the receding scene outside the window. The morning sunlight hit his face, and there was an indescribable beauty on his face in the morning light, which made her cast her eyes on him from time to time. She wanted to ask you something, like why he was so rude just now. She instinctively felt that Asaba Kazuma was not that kind of frivolous boy, but he never spoke. Asahi Kazuma's secret was like a cat's paw. From time to time, he stretched out his fleshy claws to scratch her, which made her feel itchy. You took her to the pedestrian street first. The pedestrian street was relatively cold in the early morning, and many shops were not open yet, so you found a breakfast shop to sit down. During this period, you complained to her unceremoniously about the recent situation, including the troublesome studies, the atmosphere that requires students to read the air, your next plans and arrangements. It seems that you and her are the kind of people who can talk to each other casually, just friends. She relaxed her vigilance a little, and you didn't take her shopping together until the pedestrian street gradually became noisy. Shopping in the pedestrian mall with boys is a very novel experience for her. In fact, since she went to be in high school, she wears her school uniform most of the time and doesn't have that much time to go shopping. You bought her a small white dress that was not expensive. She wanted to shirk it, but you told her it's part of the deal. We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Hui. Chapter 71. No, I'm serious. Shianakane carefully looked at Asaba Kazuma's expression and found that he was extremely indifferent, as if he had just said to her, "Have you eaten yet?" Shianakane subconsciously rubbed the center of her eyebrows. Talents such as absolute pitch and extensive knowledge can still be regarded as talents within the scope of human understanding. But what the hell is this talent of irregularly deducing the future? Kinyo Kazuma raised his eyebrows. It seems like you don't quite believe it. No, it's precisely because I believed it that I feel a little unable to accept it now. Shianakane sighed and said, "This can also answer my doubts very well. Why you change so quickly? It's only been a few days, and your tone has changed so much that it's like you've become a different person." Qian Yufengjian murmured in his heart, "Isn't he just a different person?" But it was impossible for him to say this. "Here, a little gift for you." Kinha Kazuma took out an eye mask from his bag and handed it over. It is a prop specially used to accelerate the development and adjustment of genetic talents. This thing is very useful for you. Shianayuin glanced at the eye patch and looked at Asaba Kazuma's expression, as if she was looking at a pervert. "Don't look at me. This thing is very precious. No one else can find another one except me." Asaba Kazuma spread her hands, from sitting directly opposite Shianakane to sitting side by side with her. He picked up the blindfold from her lap. "Do not move." Seeing Shianakane starting to struggle again, he whispered, "Feel quietly, this is the basis for you and me to be honest with each other." She couldn't help but flash through all kinds of fancy tricks in her mind, especially when she felt his warm fingers running through her hair and fixing her blindfold. The strange thought seemed to take root. "Do you feel like the world has changed at this moment?" Asahi Kazuma said with a chuckle. Shianakane didn't speak for a long time, lost her vision, and a strong uneasiness spread at this moment. She could hear Asaba Kazuma's breathing, and even felt like she could hear his heartbeat. What Shianayuin didn't see was the extremely complicated expression on your face after you put the blindfold on her. When you were directly at her house before, in order to make her relax her vigilance, you deliberately practiced the conversation for a long time, so that when you said the words "meet again" to Shianayuin, you could make her feel my own extremely complex emotions. This is the basis for you to trick her into taking the bait. Well, maybe this is not even a trick, because when you said this at that time, the past simulation from the previous time came after you. The excitement of seeing her again, the joy of seeing her safe and sound, and an unforgettable entanglement and pain lingering in my heart. So you subconsciously exposed your true feelings at that moment. Realizing that if this continues, you may not even be able to move forward with your planned plan, you immediately change your strategy and carefully hide your feelings. At this time, Shianakane, who was wearing an eye patch, said softly, "Junior Asaba, can you tell me what kind of person I am in the future you deduced?" Asaba Kazuma answered without hesitation, "A caged bird, longing for someone to pull you out of the cage." "So, how did I get out of the cage?" There was a hint of smile in Asahi Kazuma's voice, just like what I am doing to you now, let you break through the bottom line that you didn't dare to break through in the past. Shianakian paused for a moment, and a suspicion arose in his heart. In the future, you deduced, did you do the same thing? Asaba Kazuma coughed and couldn't help but think of the various plays he had imposed on Shianayuin in the first two simulations. Ahem, in short, just tell me whether you broke the shackles or not. Shianayuin, who was wearing an eye patch, rolled her eyes. I feel guilty. Shianakane is now certain that in the future, he deduced, Junior Asaba must not have done anything good. Then, how will my relationship with my parents be in the future? Which time are you referring to? Shianauman? She asked cautiously, have you performed it many times? Well, so far, it's been 2 times. In the first deduction, the relationship between you and your parents was not very harmonious. Mr. Shiana was very upset about you wasting your talent. What about the second time? In the second deduction, your relationship with your uncle and aunt has become much more harmonious, because although you chose to embark on the path of medicine, you never gave up the violin, relying on the prop you are wearing now. With its help, you can finally feel the beauty of nature's tune again, and finally successfully reconcile with your uncle and aunt. Then, in what capacity did you participate in this process, Senior Asaba? Shianakane's voice was full of curiosity. She has basically determined that in the future deduced by Asaba Kazuma, his relationship with her should be good. Otherwise, he would not show such a familiar attitude when he came out today. Asaba Kazuma thought about it for a while. In the 2 simulations, when dealing with the problems of Shianayuin's parents, the relationship between him and her was more like friends than lovers. When the relationship between the 2 parties really changes, it is either when the trouble with the senior sister's parents is solved, or it is at the cultural festival during the graduation season. So he hesitated for a moment, and then said, they should be considered friends. Shianayuin was silent for a moment. The words "we meet again" you said when you caught me didn't sound like friends. Shianayuin could guess from his little actions that in the future, he deduced, his relationship with her was definitely not as simple as friends. Damn, you scumbag. You dare to do it but dare not admit it, right? She did have a lot of experiences today. She was kidnapped, lied to her father and teacher, sneaked away to play, and also learned the secret of the scumbag junior classmate. Her mind was in a mess for a while, and she was somewhat overloaded. She actually cared a little. After all, Asahi Kazuma's words "we meet again" lingered in her ears for a long time and could not dissipate. She didn't know what he had done, so that when he faced her, he felt guilty and sad that he couldn't even detect. Did he do something to accidentally hurt himself? This is really possible. Looking at the way Junior Kinyu handles things, you can tell that he does things in a rather extreme way. Wait a minute, he won't really become a scumbag and make himself sad. Senior Asaba must be very popular with women. It's not impossible for him to be attracted by other women. But when this thought flashed through her mind, she felt slightly uncomfortable. Senior, what are you doing in a daze? Are you thinking about me? Kinyu Kazuma's voice suddenly approached, and her teasing laughter suddenly confused her mind. In a daze, she took off her blindfold in a panic and looked at him fiercely. Then I found that he didn't know when he was sitting opposite again. How could she not understand that she was being teased by him again? Her eyes rolled around, a slight evil smile appeared on her face, and she said, then, my last question. Well, you tell me. Jian Fengjian never forgot that his purpose was to have a showdown with her and speed up the research between the 2. Now, seeing both of them, you know my strengths and weaknesses, and I know your depth, so naturally there is no reason to refuse. Asaba Kazuma, tell me the truth, do you come to me today in the hope that I can continue to promote the research on gene-stabilizing reagents? Asaba Kazuma was silent for a moment, and finally told the truth. To be precise, We are speeding up the progress of this research together. This is very important to me. He didn't want to deceive her. Shianakane looked at him quietly, as if she had finally confirmed his sincerity, and finally she couldn't help but smile. Just like pushing aside the clouds and mist to see the stars and the moon, it is so beautiful that it is intoxicating. Anyway, I'm very happy today. Regardless of love, before this day, she had never thought that her life could run on a completely different path. In the plan her parents had given her, she would be admitted to the University of Tokyo with excellent results, and her mother would use the connections she had accumulated over the years to further develop her violin career. She will become the most beautiful vase in a famous family. Although she may be a little selfless, she can decorate the room dazzlingly wherever she is placed. But this is not what she wants. Sometimes she wonders, if you live your life so rigorously and skillfully, will you become a little less human in the end? Then, a bad junior student who was not stingy ran over and said, "Why do you think so much? Let's be happy first." Sometimes calmness does not necessarily mean sobriety, it is just cowardice. "Senior Shiana, let's make a deal," Asaba Kazuma said seriously, "join my research team. It is very important to me to further deepen the research results." Shianakian hesitated for a moment and whispered, "I don't care about this, but from what you say, this project requires knowledge that I can't do now. I feel like you are in a hurry, but I can't help you now." Asaba Kazuma smiled and said, "No one asks you to do it now, senior sister. The Department of Medicine and Biology of Tokyo University will be the cradle for incubating this project." "You mean? I will teach you the relevant knowledge system required for this project, and the rest is up to you to complete other knowledge frameworks. Of course, I also need a lot of help from Shiana-senpai for other aspects of tutoring." Shiana-kian pursed her lips and said, "Junior Kinyu, he is always so unexpected." Asahi Kazuma didn't know whether she was talking about his decision to teach her knowledge or something else, but he still stretched out his hand. "Do you agree that I can be regarded as a senior?" Shianakian smiled. "Of course, it is interesting after all, whether it is this invitation or the person who initiated the invitation." His eyes gradually became gentle, then, "Happy cooperation. Shiana Yuin agrees to your invitation. You are very interesting, and the possibilities you bring are even more interesting. On this day, you made a promise to meet again at Tokyo University. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love?" Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 72. On this day, you made a promise to meet again at Tokyo University. It's only been one day since we met again. She started to learn additional knowledge. There is a clear gap between the poor students and the top students, but the gap between the top students and the top students is even deeper and bottomless. Before, Shiana-kane didn't study very seriously, but she was still the unquestionable number one in the third grade of Heikuin High School, a school with many strong players. In fact, even if she stops absorbing new knowledge now, Shiana-kane can still easily get admitted to Tokyo University. Even her parents don't have an obvious understanding of this. After all, it belongs to a field they don't know much about. But now, Shiana-uman has met his opponent. The scene unfolds. Location, Heikuin High School office. "Ah, trouble, I need to tidy up the office." Hayakawa Haruna stretched. Asahi Kazuma, who was sitting on her father-in-law's desk, saw this and asked, "Sister Haruna, why do you have time to tidy up your desk today? A famous alumni is going back to school, and the principal asked us to sort it out so that no one will laugh at it." "Oh, do you need my help?" "Farewell, you two study hard. I can handle such small things myself." Kinyu Kazuma nodded and lowered his head to read the book again. Hayakawa Haruna quietly glanced at the two people who were studying on the desk. During the study breaks, Shiina Uman would teach Asaba Kazuma some course questions, and would also take the initiative to ask him some content that looked like printed papers. Perhaps sensing teacher Hayakawa's gaze, Asahi Kazuma raised his head again, looked at her and smiled. "Mr. Hayakawa, what's the matter?" "Ah, it's nothing. This is the first time I've seen Xiaohian show such a serious expression while studying." Kinyo Kazuma chuckled. He could understand what Haruna-san was thinking. In the past, Shiina Uman was like the wind blowing slowly in the morning, with a little coolness, quietly opening the book, and then leaving no trace, but it did take away something. In an understatement, he achieved the grades expected by ordinary top academics. Being a classmate with such a person is actually quite stressful. But this time, Shiina Kane encountered a rare dilemma. This is why he had to resist for 3 days even though he was so anxious that he wanted to start another simulation. He was directly indoctrinated into all the details of this technology and the corresponding branch theories. With the help of the digestive potion, the already smart man still needed to spend 3 days, frantically looking up relevant information and comparing each other, before he could fully understand this technology. Technically relevant details. Let alone Shianakian, who has no foundation, do it by herself. After all, this is the research result of her peak period. It would be strange if Shiana Yuan could easily solve the difficulties that it took her future self a lot of time to decipher. No, Shiana Uman was confused again during a part of the gene stabilization reagent, so she turned sideways and got a little closer to Asaba Kazuma, her red lips moving slightly. Hayakawa Haruna subconsciously raised her ears to listen, but the sound was so weak that it was almost inaudible. Asahi Kazuma obviously did it on purpose. They deliberately controlled the volume when they spoke. Every word was whispered. Their absolute sense of pitch gave them amazing control over the size and timbre of their voices. They could be called the reincarnation of two silencers. Even if they whispered in front of Hayakawa Haruna, it would be difficult for her to hear them clearly. Not to mention that there was still some distance between her and the two of them. Even if they were at the same distance, such a low voice would be heard as a fuzzy sound by others. High-end information exchange often only requires simple operations. JPG. Mr. Hayakawa is in a hurry. Junior Asaba, you are so bad. Shiana Kane's dark eyes flashed with a smile. Kinyo Kazuma shook his head. You can't blame me for this. You made this proposal. There is nothing we can do about it. Although the possibility is unlikely, we do need to prevent the possibility of accidental leakage of research. Aren't you the same? You haven't left any relevant documents online. That's true. After all, I don't want to attract the attention of some people. I can only say that I'm sorry for Haruna-san. Let's keep the secret ourselves. Let Haruna-san worry about it. Shiana Kane was amused by his words and said helplessly, if you do this, Mr. Hayakawa will be angry. Kinyo Fengjian's ears moved and he whispered, don't talk yet, someone is coming. There was a familiar sound of clogs stepping on the ground. Kinyo Kazuma vaguely heard the voices of others saying hello. Mr. Shiana. Ishijiro-sensei. Shiana Kian's body trembled slightly, and she subconsciously wanted to distance herself. Be obedient. Kinyo Kazuma poked her waist, don't make unnecessary moves. He is your father, not your enemy. Shiana Kian's body froze, and she turned her head to look at him with some embarrassment. This idiot, does he know what he is doing? If his father finds out, it will be all over. Then she suddenly remembered that Asahi Kazuma had already deduced the future. Maybe in the future, he has already dealt with his father. Thinking of this, she who was originally nervous barely controlled her movements. Just like usual, pretend not to care, and everything will be fine. Some students could be heard whispering outside the office. Huh? Why did Mr. Shiana come to school today? Mr. Shiana? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. The famous ukiyo-e master, the Shiina family, is a very powerful person. How powerful? It's hard to explain clearly in one sentence. To put it simply, in the Japanese painting circle, among the major schools that still inherit ukiyo-e, he can be regarded as one of the top 3 figures. Although ukiyo-e is in decline now, Shiina master his reputation has never diminished. Wait a minute, Shiina, do you have anything with third-year senior Shiina? Dad, he is still an honorary alumnus of our Bian High School. Wow, no wonder the vice principal and Ishijiro-sensei are here together. After hearing what the students said, Asaba Kazuma felt that Shiina-senpai's mentality seemed to have changed a bit and she became more anxious. Qian Yufengjian saw that her mentality was a little depressed. She was silent for a moment and whispered. There is nothing to be nervous about. In the future, I deduced, after you became famous, the principal personally begged you to come back to participate in the cultural festival. That scene was much grander than your father's. Really? Shiina Qian whispered, with a rare hint of excitement in her voice. Real? How about you? Qian Yufengjian was silent for a moment. I didn't go. Shiina Qian's brows jumped, and just as he was about to ask why, he heard him shout. Don't talk yet. It's time to get up. My dad and my teacher are here. Ah, she only heard the words "our dad" in her mind, and after a moment she began to think about who the teacher Asahi Kazuma was talking about. It shouldn't be Mr. Hayakawa. Mr. Hayakawa is his class teacher. He won't emphasize it deliberately. But she still spat in her heart, that's my dad, what does it have to do with you, a bad guy? There is one more update, I can finish it around 2100 hours. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 73. Seeing that Shiina Qian's attention was diverted, Asaba Kazuma breathed a sigh of relief. He instinctively did not want Shiina Qian to know the news of his death. The burden of life was too heavy. Even in the simulation, he did not want her to bear so much for him. Of course, he doesn't have time to think so much now, because Mr. Shiina and his art leader, Mr. Chihiro Ishijiro, have all come to the office. Several people came to the office. Ishijiro Chiu nodded towards Asaba Kazuma, and showed a surprised expression after seeing Shiina Yuin standing next to Asaba Kazuma. Mr. Shiina also walked in. When he saw his daughter and a boy sitting at the desk, he frowned subconsciously. Although Shiina Uman's expression did not change, Asaba Kazuma was very close to her, so he naturally felt her worry. Don't be afraid, I'm here, Qian Yufengjian said calmly. Seeing him so calm, Shiina Qian felt inexplicably relieved. Asaba Kazuma looked in the direction of several people. What surprised him was that Mr. Shiina and Mr. Ishijiro were looking out the door at the same time. This action seems to be, still waiting for someone to come in? Without letting him guess any more, he saw a thin old man with gray hair walking in. Mr. Fujiwara, please come inside. Many of the students looking around looked confused. Who is this? I feel like I've never seen him before. The vice principal is here to accompany me in person. Hey, why is it this one? Who is it? Fujiwara Masayama, the #1 person in Japan's contemporary traditional art world. Why did he come here today? Huh? I've never heard of it. This is not nonsense. When Mr. Fujiwara was active, we were not even born yet. Although we are already in the internet era, it has not been long since the internet became prosperous and popular. It is normal for young people not to recognize an old man like Fujiwara Masayama, but how should I put it? What does it have to do with Whitebeard claiming that there is no ship that can carry him in the new era, and him beating Blackbeard to the point of calling him daddy? The next moment, the old man's eyes quietly looked in the direction of Shiina Qian. No. Shiina Uman subconsciously glanced at Asaba Kazuma. What he looked at seemed to be Junior Qianyu. What kind of wind is blowing? People in the traditional painting circle are all gathered together today, Hayakawa Haruna muttered at the side. Chihiro Ishijiro can also be considered a member of the traditional painting circle. It was rare for Asaba Kazuma to see such a tall man with such a gentle voice, and he almost laughed out loud. Xiao Ishijiro, come back today and check it out. We agreed to keep a low profile. Do you have anything to do with being low-key, the old man teased. Isn't this low-key, Ishijiro Chihiro said with a smile, such a battle is really the low-key among low-keys for you. Kazuma, come here. When Asaba Kazuma saw Mr. Ishijiro just now, he had expected it. Sure enough, as soon as he entered the office, Chiyo Ishijiro began to greet him. Mr. Shiana's eyes were like arrows, and his deep gaze was cast towards this young man. Obviously, he came with Fujiwara Masayama. Mr. Shiana suddenly appeared on the scene and almost caught him off guard. If it weren't for the familiar sound of clogs that instinctively aroused Asaba Kazuma's alert, he might still be whispering to Shiana Yuan almost next to each other. Wait a minute. Kinyo Kazuma was keenly aware of Huadian. He and Shiana Yuan have the same absolute pitch adjustment gene. Compared to himself, Shiana Yuan should be more familiar with the sound of his father's clogs. Why do you look like you don't realize anything now? After coming back to his senses, Asaba Kazuma glanced meaningfully at Shiana Yuan. You seen your sister, you know clearly that our dad is coming, but you are still playing with fire, right? Mr. Shiana's stern eyes glanced over, and Asaba Kazuma immediately looked away. Shiana Kian looks like a good girl who has been quiet for a long time. Who would have thought that she was playing with fire just now? Enjoy the excitement, right? Qian Yufengjian gently grinned at his teeth and had an idea in his mind. Are you Asaba Kazuma? Fujiwara Masayama asked with a smile. Yes, Mr. Fujiwara, Asaba Kazuma said obediently. Okay, it's great to be young. Seeing young people like you, I truly feel that the times no longer belong to us. Fujiwara Masayama touched his beard. The work you asked Ishijiro to submit, I see arrived. Good, really good. Asaba Kazuma showed a surprised expression just right. There was only one work he submitted to Ishijiro, and that was the work for the Dongjing Youth Drawing Contest. Are you the judge for this year? If you are not a judge, it is unlikely that you will attract the attention of such a big shot so quickly. Chihiro Ishijiro chuckled and said, Fujiwara and everyone are not only the judges this time, but also the actual organizers of this event. Today, Fujiwara and everyone went back to school to visit. When I heard about you, I wanted to come and see you. As people get older, they always want to interact with young people to add some vitality to themselves. Fujiwara Masayama said with a smile, it is rare to draw well, but if you look upright, this is a good thing. Asaba Kazuma stood in front of Fujiwara Masayama, neither humble nor arrogant, nor impetuous, and a bookish air came to his face. This endearing appearance was also the reason why he was often taken out by his leaders in his previous life. He glanced at Mr. Shiana quietly. He kept frowning and seemed a little unhappy. Obviously, his little actions with Shiana Uman made this old-school parent unhappy. He had a change of heart and decided to take the initiative to stir up the topic. Is this Uncle Shiana? Asaba Kazuma looked at Mr. Shiana, who was standing aside with a cold face and said nothing, with wide curious eyes. Well, it seems I came at the wrong time, Mr. Shiana said coldly. Shiana Kane on the side suddenly became nervous. Idiot, what are you doing? My dad is still angry. Qian Yufazima's cold expression revealed a smile as warm as the August sun. No, actually I've been really busy these days and delayed my studies. Thanks to Senior Shiana's help, I always wanted to express my gratitude to Senior and my uncles and aunts. The smile was so pure, and the sincerity in his voice was so revealing that Mr. Shiana subconsciously turned his head. Kinyo Kazuma snickered inwardly. When he turned his head again, his stern face became slightly softer. Chihiro Ishijiro played the assist just in time and sighed, last month his manga passed the Jump serialization conference. As everyone knows about the situation in the manga circle, the work is very intensive. I was thinking about finding a suitable teacher for him before, but he said that he got help from a senior sister. When I heard that she was your daughter, I felt relieved. Mr. Shiina, huh? Shiina Uman, huh? Her dark eyes glanced at Asahi Kazuma. She knows a lot of Asaba Kazuma's secrets. Being able to serialize them on Jump, does that mean that he has good painting skills? Shiina-kian's heart moved. Do you want him to be an Iramanga teacher for a while? Senior sister, you really helped a lot, Asaba Kazuma said sincerely. I thought that in a few days, I would come to visit after finishing the work at hand, but I didn't expect that Uncle Shiina came today, so I can say thank you in advance. It won't be too late to come to our door again until October. Fujiwara Masayama on the side thought for a moment and suddenly said, I heard that you are now the general supervisor of the animation studio. Supervising such a heavy work will affect your grades to some extent. You really need to find someone to help you make up for your mistakes. Mr. Shiina, huh? Shiina Uman, huh? Chihiro Ishijiro's face twitched slightly. You kid, no wonder you walked faster than anyone else after class recently. Teacher Ishijiro, injecting vitality into paintings cannot be achieved by simply practicing, Asaba Kazuma said softly, and I have always believed that if you want to convey the ideas in your paintings, you need to gain the public's approval first. Recognition, comics, and animation are a good medium, aren't they? Chihiro Ishijiro nodded subconsciously, but still said helplessly, will this distract my energy? To a certain extent, but I am a very greedy person. Only children consider choices. For someone like me. When Asaba Kazuma paused for a moment, he looked at Shiina-kian, and then said, I want them all. Quietly, the tips of Shiina-kian's ears were dyed with a hint of crimson. Fujiki Masayama laughed, as if he understood something, patted Mr. Shiina on the shoulder and said, CG, Kazuma is a good boy, isn't he? Shiina Kiyoshi squinted his eyes, finally remembered something, sighed and said, a genius indeed. Shiina-kian seemed to understand something, her head lowered a little, and the crimson on the tips of her ears had spread to her neck. The girl's blush was better than a long dialogue. Shiina Kiyoshi sighed, who would have thought that his daughter might also have some ideas. Stop scolding, the number of words has been increased.